Good evening and welcome to Global Lens on Apna Watan TV. I am Saadia Afzaal. Tonight we confront a momentous shift, one that reverberates across continents, across justice systems, across the very meaning of crime and terror in our time. Canada, a country that prides itself on rule of law, has designated the Lawrence Bishnoi gang, an Indian-based criminal syndicate, as a terrorist entity under Canadian law. So first, let's talk about who is this Bishnoi gang. To understand the magnitude of Canada's action, first we must understand who or what we are dealing with. The Lawrence Bishnoi gang is named after Lawrence Bishnoi, a gangster from Punjab, India, who now serves many of his operations from within prison walls. Over the past decade, what began perhaps as campus politics or local crime has morphified into a transnational net of extortion, intimidation, murder, and influence. In India, the gang is accused of involvement in a string of high-profile killings, including the murder of Punjabi rapper Sidhu Moosewala and even the political figure Baba Siddique. But the gang's reach is beyond India. Its tentacles extend into Canada, where diaspora communities have reported extortion demands, threats, instances of shootings and arsons, and intimidation of cultural and business leaders. The Bishnoi gang is not just killing people in Punjab, they are sending hitmen across borders. They are threatening shopkeepers in Toronto, extorting families in Surrey, and executing targets on Canadian soil. These are not isolated crimes. These are coordinated operations, planned in India and executed globally. Let me ask you, how does a man in prison in India coordinate murders in Canada? Who's giving him phones, Wi-Fi, political protection? Who's laundering his money? And who's facilitating his network? The uncomfortable truth? These gangs do not survive without institutional protection. And it's high time the world and India admits it. Canada didn't label the Bishnoi gang a terrorist entity for fun. This is the first time Canada has actually used its anti-terror laws to designate a foreign-based criminal syndicate, not a political militia, not a separatist movement, but a gang. Why? Because this gang, based in India, is operating with such power and influence that its reach now rivals traditional terror networks. Let's stop pretending Lawrence Bishnoi is some rogue criminal running extortion rackets from inside a dusty prison cell in India. No, this is transnational terror, fueled by impunity, funded by fear, and enabled by India's complete institutional failure, or perhaps something worse, willful blindness. For years now, Canadian provincial leaders, first British Columbia and then Alberta, have pushed for the gang to be declared a terrorist organization. They argued that traditional policing powers are insufficient to cut through transnational networks of intimidation and violence. The gang, critics say, doesn't merely commit crime, it imposes fear, targeting persons for their influence, identity, and affiliation, thereby crossing into the territory of terror. In fact, Canada's domestic law now allows it to treat groups whose actions meet certain criteria, murder, intimidation, financing, recruitment, violence, as terrorist entities with all accompanying powers. So the question is, when does an organized crime syndicate become a terrorism threat? The Bishnoi case may be our answer. Where is India's outrage when Canadian citizens of Indian origin are being shot in their own driveways? Where is the crackdown on Bishnoi empire? Instead, we hear vague denials, lame responses, or worse, attempts to blame Canada. This isn't just about crime, this is about sovereignty. No democratic country, not Canada, not the UK, not Australia, can allow another nation's criminal terror networks to spill blood in their streets while that nation does nothing, or worse, winks and nods behind the scenes. The Bishnoi gang thrives because it is allowed to thrive. Think about it. If Canada can track these networks, intercept plots, and identify gang assets across provinces, then what is India's excuse? On September 29, 2025, Canada officially listed the Bishnoi gang as a terrorist entity. Public Safety Minister Gary Anand Sangari said that violence, terror, and intimidation of communities will never be tolerated. Canada is signaling that this is not just crime. This is terror, and it will be treated as such. We are witnessing a paradigm shift. Terrorism is no longer only ideologically driven. Canada's move may be a message not just to the Bishnoi gang, but to India and to transnational actors that support or sympathize. Tonight, we stand at a crossroads of crime, terror, sovereignty, and justice. Canada's bold move to brand the Bishnoi gang a terrorist entity is not just a headline. It is an experiment in global governance, a challenge to legal definitions, and a test of moral authority. If Canada succeeds, if it brings down a cross-border network of fear, it may set a new template for the 21st century. This is no ordinary crime story. It is a story of power, of law, of identity, and of the fragile boundary between terror and crime in our era. Let's not forget, Sidhu Moosewala wasn't just a singer. He was political, he was outspoken, and his assassination wasn't just a hit, it was a message. So when Indian law enforcement shrugs, when prison guards look the other way, when ministers downplay the threat, they become complicit. And when India allows this gang to continue targeting people on Canadian soil, in British Columbia, in Brampton, in Alberta, then it is not just an internal problem. It becomes an international outrage. It becomes an export of terror. It becomes a betrayal of the global rules-based order. And Canada rightly has said, enough is enough. This is Saadia Afzaal for Apna Watan TV.
You are watching Apna Watan.